Hello, Jim here again, and I want to share another fun experiential lesson that you all can do at home. And for today's lesson, I wanted to use the topic of soil. Soil is so important whether we're thinking about the forest or whether we're thinking about the farm. And it seems so simple sometimes when we think about soil, but it's so important and so complex that there are scientists that study just soil. And we're going to do an activity today that is very simple to set up, but again, kind of like last week, is you can take a lot of different ways and do a lot with it. So let's head to my indoor lab and see what we got. All right, so here are the materials for today's indoor activity, our soil science lab. And I'll just go around and kind of share what we've got. I've got just a jar here with some soil that I gathered from outside, which I'll speak about in a moment. I've got some water right here, just out of the tap, so nothing special. I've got a jar with some markings on the inside handy for measuring, and I've got a spoon there for stirring. Doesn't have to be a spoon, you can have a stick or anything that you would like to use for stirring. This is my completed project from yesterday, which we'll talk a little bit more about. I've got a notebook here with a pen, and you can use anything as well, whatever it would be helpful to jot down some observations and notes to keep track of your data through this project. And I've got a ruler. Helpful for sure if you don't have a jar with measurements on it. This will help you with that. But at the end, you're also going to want to take some measurements just to compare maybe some different samples that you have. Now back to the soil. I was able to gather some from both inside with some potted plants I had and from outside. Now, make sure that you've got permission to gather soil from wherever you are getting it from. We don't want anyone to go out and just start digging up the yard. So make sure that you've got a good place to get some soil, but also permission to get it from there. So here is our soil sample for today zoomed in, and you can see all the different things in there. For today, we're going to focus on two parts of soil, the organic and the mineral layers. Certainly air and water and the microorganisms are important to all of this, but we're really going to focus on the minerals, which are the things that make up rocks. Think about them being non-living. And we're going to think about organic stuff, or things that came from or once were living things. So dead leaves that are on the ground, animal waste. You might think about if you compost at home, all of that compost that you make from banana peels and apple cores, that is organic material. To help us think about the mineral layer of our soil, I've just got a demonstration here with some paper, and the reason that's important is there are lots of different types of soils, and a lot of that is based on the mineral component, what makes up the soil. Wherever you're at on Earth, there's often lots of different types of rocks, and that can make different types of soils. Those rocks and minerals can also be of different sizes, and here we've got 3 different sizes, and those are how we group our soil. So here, if you imagine you were zoomed way in with a microscope on some soil, these are representing sand, right? So sand is the biggest mineral particle size that you're going to find in soil. You might find bigger pieces of pebbles and gravel and things like that, but that is just pebbles and gravel. We won't consider that part of the soil layer necessarily. Not that they can't be found in soil. Next size down, we call this silt, and you can see it's quite a bit smaller, and so as it's packed together, it might be able to smush together a little bit better. Less air and water is able to get in between. And down here, this very smallest, we've got lots and lots of little pieces. That is clay, and you can imagine clay if you've made a natural pot from clay or any other piece of art, and you can think about how fine those particles are. They stick together really easy with some water, and that is because of how small they are. So we've got sand, silt, and clay. Now I've also got some dead leaves here, and that can help remind us that we also have our organic components. So things that were once living that are breaking down, and that is where the nutrients come from that the plants need to live and grow. Okay, so activity experiment time. What we're going to do is we're going to try and separate all the different materials of our soil in our jar by using water. So what we're going to do is we're going to pour our soil. I'm going to use the 1/4 mark on my jar here, fill that up with soil, and then I'm going to fill up my jar to 3/4 with water. So I'm going to use basically a half of my jar is water, 1/4 of my jar is soil, and I'm going to leave some space at the top. And then I'm going to stir it up. And at that point, you can start thinking about what is going to happen. All right, so I'm back. I put my soil into the jar, and now I'm going to fill up the remaining bits of the jar with some water here, right up to that 3/4 mark. And then I'm just going to take my spoon and stir it up. Now, this is the most important thing. We got to stir this up really super well. Get everything that's on the bottom to the top and stir it up and stir, 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 so that it's as mixed up as well as it possibly can be. And then when you feel as though your jar of water and soil cannot be mixed up any more than it is, take your stirring device out, and then we're going to wait. And so this is a good time to make your prediction. What do you think is going to happen? Your hypothesis, right? So we know that there are maybe different sizes in there. You could have felt your soil beforehand. Think about the texture. If there's bigger pieces, more sand. Are there smaller pieces, more clay? And as those things are now mixed into the water, what do you think is going to happen? So when we're thinking about what's going to happen, you can see my vessel on the left that I did yesterday. You can see it got very clear. A lot of those things settled to the bottom. And hopefully, if you have a variety, you might be able to see some different layers of how things are settling. This one on the right is doing that right now, but it's going to take a few hours for those things to settle. And what I'd like you to think about and for your activity is, if there are different particles in yours, what order are they going to settle out in? All right, what's going to be on the bottom? What's going to be in the middle? What's going to be on the top? Is it going to be different? Is it going to be all mixed together? Those are some good questions that you should write down and see if you can answer by observing. What will make this a great experiment too is if you have multiple different places that you can get soil. If you've got a little forest area around that's accessible, a little garden, a little maybe place in the yard that's got some dirt. Again, make sure you've got permission to be digging there. You don't want to take anyone's soil that needs it. But it would be good to compare those different types of soil to see when you mix them with the water and let them settle if that is different for each soil type. All right, that's our soil activity for the day. I hope that you were able to get some good observations, maybe tried out some different types of soil, did some cool, fun soil science for the day. So again, I will see you all next week with a new video. And if you are following along on YouTube, you can make sure to like and subscribe and keep up to date with all the newest things. If you're following along on Facebook, again, you can like and maybe share so that if someone else is interested in some natural science or farm education, they can learn along with us. Have a great week, be well, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.